Hi, I'm Supradeep Datta. I'm an assistant professor at State University of New York, Buffalo, and my research pertains to entrepreneurship and innovation to see how private equity investments influence entrepreneurial growth, influence entrepreneurial exits through acquisitions and IPOs and innovation. So, before joining academics, I was partly an entrepreneur with a couple of friends. So I've been in the entrepreneurship arena in and out, and I still continue to help entrepreneurs to understand what are the challenges they face and how to overcome those challenges in their entrepreneurial growth. So I've been talking to a lot of VCs and angels around. Uh, During my PhD days, I was talking to a few angel investors who were investing in different projects. So I did my PhD at Purdue, and so there's an angel community there in Indianapolis. So I had a talk with them to understand what challenges or difficulties they are facing in terms of investing and how they are different from the traditional venture capital firms. So that was kind of an initial motivation for me for my dissertation work to see what are the differences between different private equity investors because these investors are institutionally different structures. And as a result, they may have different influences on the firm growth and how they influence or how they catalyze the innovation in a firm. So that was a starting motivation behind this research. So, talking about angel investors are a pretty heterogeneous group of investors, very different from venture capitals. There can be individual investors, there can be groups, there can be active investors, passive investors. Some of them are experienced with a particular industry, some are just general investors. So, how do you really define angel investors? Are they family and friends, or are they equity investors who are accredited by the uh, federal board? So, what makes them very different from venture capitals? So, venture capitals uh, are a set of investors who invest somebody else's money into a fund, and then they invest the fund into different companies. So they are like fund managers uh, of somebody else's money. But angel investors, the basic difference is they invest their own capital, and that's the basic institutional difference. So to really understand this approach, the main challenge that I faced was to get good quality data on angel investment because you can get VC investment data very easily in the public domain, and now there's a lot of research on that area and that has used that data sets. So it's pretty well established, but that's not the case with angel investors. So initially I thought of doing a survey of my own, but then given the time limitations and the kind of response rate I may get, so I approached different institutions, and one of them being Angel Capital Association, which is kind of a sister concern of the Kaufman Group, and they have recently started collecting data on angel group investments, but that is since 2010 they have started. There was a survey done by Robert Wildbank and Warren Boecker. Warren Boecker is at Washington University, and so they did a survey back in 2007 with angel groups. It's again a Kaufman survey. The data is available in the public domain, but it is coded. So I contacted the authors, and they were willing to share the information of the companies that these investors mention. And so I signed a contract with them, and they shared those information with me. And that was the initial start of collating data. So I collected the VC data from standard venture capital databases. I got this angel group investment data from the Angel Capital Association Kaufman survey, and that helped me create a database of around 350 technology ventures, which got angel group and VC investments. So that helped me analyze or tease apart the differences between angels and VCs and how they catalyze innovation and commercialization. So what we find is all the prior research has focused totally on VCs with very few papers looking into angels. This research is important from three perspectives. From a practitioner's perspective, this is important because entrepreneurs nowadays have a choice of whom they should source the investment from, given there are multiple different sources of investment. Crowdfunding is again among them that is coming up very soon. Uh, so, whom should I choose the investment from, and what does that particular investor bring to the table? That's a very important practical question that the entrepreneur needs to understand before entering into a relationship with the equity investor. Now, prior research has shown that VCs help companies grow, they help in innovation, they help in commercialization. But from a empirical standpoint, we know that VCs and angels at times invest together, they syndicate together, or at times angels invest before VCs. So in that sense, ignoring the impact of angels can be spurious to the empirical results we get for VCs, because the effect we got for VCs can be equally applicable to angels. So what we find, controlling for all selection effects and using the econometric methodologies which are applicable to the question being asked, we find that angels and VCs have an equivalent effect in terms of innovation rates. However, when it comes to innovation quality or the impact of the innovation, and to see whether the innovation is successful through commercialization, we find the VC effect to be far stronger than the angel effect. So that kind of gives us an indication that in some sense angels and VCs have a substitutive effect, but in other ways they can also be complementary to each other. Yeah, that's a good point. So VCs are more focused are on investments that where they have the expertise in, where they have the network that they can leverage on. Angel groups are very similar to VCs in that context. Uh, they're different from individual angels. Angel groups are a group of investors who have expertise in a certain particular industry or area. They will invest in a particular venture only when they see that they can bring something to the table beyond just capital infusion. That's where they have a lot of similarities with VCs, yet they are institutionally very different because they invest their own capital and they have very different norms of contracts compared to VCs, which are more stringent for the entrepreneur. So you have angel groups also leverage their network, their expertise in a particular industry, and that shows the spur in the innovation rates. But maybe angels don't have that kind of a network breadth or that the VC enjoys, and that's where VCs can really help that particular innovation have a longer impact on the following innovations and help in a quicker commercialization of the innovation because their investments are very time bound. But angel investments are not that stringently time bound. So, in terms of normative implications, this research really highlights that not all private equity investors are alike. And it's not only capital infusion that should be of concern, it's what additional do they bring to the table in terms of uh, increasing the growth of the company, in terms of helping the company grow. If you really want capital, the banks are there to give you a loan. But these investors are specialized investors who know about the area, about the field, and can leverage their networks to help the company grow. So in that sense, whether should I take money, whether a dollar from an angel versus a dollar from a VC, how much does that cost the investor? Because all these relationships come at a cost for the entrepreneur. And that is something that the entrepreneur should take and should be cognizant of before entering into a relationship. It also appeals to angels and VCs as well, and also to policymakers who have generally focused more on VCs, and angels have generally been under the carpet, to show how these equity investors can be complementary in the market, how they can complement each other's strengths and help the economy be more entrepreneurial in that sense, and make capital accessible to a wider spectrum of entrepreneurs. So, as our results show that BAs are good in spurring the innovation, in accelerating the innovation, but to really have an impact of the innovation, that's where the VC plays a critical role. So BA can act as a strong signal for the VC to invest in a particular venture, and that's where BA can take the help of the VC's network to leverage the growth of the particular company. It increases the churning rate of the capital that the BA has invested. Finally, I want to say from an academic standpoint, although this has a strong practical implication for entrepreneurs and policymakers at large, from an academic standpoint, this paper really highlights uh, differences between two main investor groups, and the work that has bestowed a lot of interest on VCs and shown that VCs have a strong impact on innovation can be equally applicable to angels to a certain extent. And the empirical work done in this paper uh, really shows how one can try different methodologies to control for selection effects and come out with a better way of measuring the treatment effect of these investments.